there is one overarching theme that we can see emerging with business technology. It is the theme of tech for the greater good. For TechRepublic and ZDNet, I'm Dan Patterson with Larry Dignan and Bill Detweiler. Larry, we saw Elon Musk give some interesting speeches in the last week. We see the healthcare industry and even smart cities all emerging to build public-private partnerships and focus on this theme of tech for the greater good. So is this a deep and profound cynicism designed to acquire more customers, or are we really seeing technology applied to a really interesting and new market?
It's like all things tech, it's both. I think the tech for good theme is something that is going to be, I think we're going to keep coming back to it over and over again. So like South by Southwest, they had a lot of talks like that and all that. Because I think we're at this inflection point where there is a backlash against tech. There's a backlash against Silicon Valley. And it's clear that not all technology is really good for you. Social media, AI. AI could be great or it could be evil. Either way, right? I mean, it's part of toss-up. So that's sort of the prevailing theme, right? So while something like smart cities, you can enable more services, you can censor up a lot of things, you can make things a lot more intelligent. But also I look at all those sensors and think, well, they could be hacked. So I think that's kind of where we stand, whether it's healthcare, whether it's smart city, whether you can go industry by industry and for all the ways, tech and digital transform something, it can also be a liability. And I think that's just something that the culture in the US and everywhere else, we're just kind of starting to wrap our heads around. And that's going to be an ongoing discussion. So that's why, Elon Musk will continue to build AI for self-driving cars, yet complain AI is going to be the death of the human race. So that's sort of the juggling act we're all going to have. And it's going to be increasingly a government issue.
Hey, Bill, I know at TechRepublic, particularly with our Tina Maddox, we've covered smart cities in great depth. But are you seeing emerging technologies, particularly in the private part of the public-private partnerships, that are really starting to add real change and change that could be for the public good?
Definitely. But like as Larry said, you're always dealing, when governments have to get involved, sometimes things will move a little more slowly. So you had mentioned South by Southwest, and when Tina Maddox was out there covering the event, she talked to people from London. She talked to people from New York. She talked to people from who are in the government, and they're really looking to build these public-private partnerships and they're looking to use technology not just for technology's sake, because like Larry said, technology is kind of neutral. It can be used for bad, it can be used for good, but they're really looking to use technology to deliver services to their citizens in a way that makes meaningful change. So whether it's smart street lights, whether it's Wi-Fi enabled or wireless, street lights that enable wireless connectivity, whether it's technologies that enable parking, technologies that enable sort of ride sharing, technologies that are on an open data front so you can determine the quality of the air in the city. Those are, you've got city governments now that are looking at all these technologies, but trying to apply it in a way that provides some type of meaningful effect, provides an impact to their citizens. And sometimes that's a tricky thing. I mean, you may have a technology, you may want to use drones, for example, to provide surveillance for your police department, right? So there's actually a program that the city of Louisville is doing some piloting on where they're using what's called a shot spotter technology, which can triangulate gunshots. So if they detect using microphones, and so if there is a gunshot within the city, they'll send a drone out to where the location was of that gunshot to begin surveillance. Now that's really good, right? Because a drone can get to the location much more quickly than someone in a car, right? Then you can have officers dispatched in a car. And because it's all, driven electronically by algorithms, the drone can be deployed immediately, whereas you would have a human that had to do the dispatch for the officers. So, but that raises privacy concerns and privacy issues if you're in the location where that, where that shot came from, and you've got a law enforcement drone hovering overhead, that raises some privacy issues. So you're seeing governments acknowledging the usefulness of this technology, but also trying to balance the fears and the potential downsides as well.
What role does the healthcare industry play in tech for the public good?
I think it's going to have a huge role, largely because technology can monitor things better. So in theory, at least, if you can monitor folks with, medical equipment and wearables, it'll just be easier to head off, issues before they snowball into something really bad. So that lowers your healthcare costs. It could help in terms of a city in a pandemic. And can provide a lot of analytics, and it can do a lot more things remotely. So, I think, in the healthcare space, more tech's better at this point.
Definitely, yeah. I'd echo what Larry said. We were talking about South by. That was one of the areas where you saw a lot of companies showcasing their new tech, or it was in healthcare. Whether it was Autobach Healthcare, which does a lot of work to make prosthetics. They're focusing heavily on bionics now. The merging of not just using this, not just building the same type of prosthetic limbs, but actually using technology to tie those devices, those prosthetics, into the nervous system, right? To provide much more feedback to the wearer of those, increase that physicality, increase the wearer's their mobility. You're starting to see, like Larry said, sensors enabled, whether it's implantable sensors that can detect heart rhythms, that can detect, the way you're walking, that can detect, how you're breathing. And all of those devices are going to, take healthcare from a time where you go to the doctor's office and you see the doctor and they maybe prescribe some tests for you and you go somewhere else to do the tests. Well, now through the internet, through connectivity, and through the sensors that you can have either implanted or worn, that data can be collected on a real-time basis and on an ongoing basis, and then it can be delivered to a doctor, to a nurse, to a clinician, someone who can interpret that data and then deliver down to you a diagnosis via a telepresence solution, whether it's your phone or a screen in your house, whatever it is. So it really is going to enable medicine to be delivered a lot more quickly and hopefully a lot more proactively.